Okay, this is probably the crown jewel in my collection. This is my VE Commodore replica of my own car. So this isn't an actual kit, this is a custom. Hey everybody, it's Gary from MAXXIMUM Motors. In today's episode, we're going to change it up a little bit. In fact, we're going to do something completely different. You may remember, if you've been with the channel for a while, that in the first episode I actually talked about how there's different ways to enjoy cars in the car hobby. Well, one of them is with RC cars. Well, it just so happens a guy has a pretty extensive collection of RC cars, including an RC Holden. And later on in this episode, I'm actually going to show you how to make your own RC Holden Commodore. So let's get into it. Let's go. So the year was around 1985 and yours truly was around 14 years old. And if I wanted any sort of, expensive toys and whatnot, the way I was raised was, you got to work for it. So I saved up my paper money. There was a hobby store, just a tiny little hobby shop owned by an old German couple, the Bredels. Anyways, I used to drop by there after school, and I made an arrangement with them to pay, like $25 a week or whatever, and I got my first real hobby grade RC car. I got back into the hobby in 2018. So the first thing I did, the first purchase I made, serious hobby grade purchase, was to acquire from the US an all original 1985 Tamiya Wild One. Let me show you. So guys, they have re-released the Tamiya Wild One since 1985 a couple of times, I believe, but this guy here is an original. So original body, original driver, original drivetrain. These wheels came off of another original Tamiya that I have from the same era, so 1985, a Tamiya Fox, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But this was the first. So this is definitely a dune buggy style. It's very simple, just two-wheel drive, rear diff, electric 540 Mabuchi RS motor, and it's got independent suspension. It's got all the radio gear up front. This was the very first RC car that I had. Not this exact one, but this is a good representation. Mine box art for these is black. I'll probably post a picture of the box art image for most of all of them. So I'll post that now for this one. Was black. And whoever painted this one, I think it came from like Pennsylvania or somewhere, elected to paint it blue. So that is my 1985 Tamiya Wild One. But this guy is completely unrestored, not by me anyways. The diff is a little bit crunchy sometimes, so it needs to be gone through. And I think one of the things I'm going to do this winter, and I might even do it for an episode on the channel, is I'll time-lapse a teardown and rebuild of one of my RCs. And I've got a couple of projects. This is one of them. So, let me know in the comments. Would you like to see me rebuild this guy? Do I keep the original body on the car, or do I rebody it with a reproduction body? And I'm going to talk about repro bodies in a couple minutes. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Let's go. So after the Wild One, the next one that I had as a younger man, fella, was something called the Tamiya Boomerang. I'm a big Tamiya guy. There's other RC brands out there like Arma and Traxxas and Kyosho. But most of my collection is Tamiya. That's what I cut my chops on. They're not really known or regarded as being like the fastest things in the world, but they're darn cool. Now this guy is a little bit different. It's a bit of a custom. So at a glance, this is my Tamiya Boomerang. And this is the way I had it, in like this type of yellow color with the blue stickers when I was a kid. This though is not an actual boomerang, first of all. This is actually something called a Fire Dragon with a boomerang body. So let me show you. So, without getting too technical, this car, the Fire Dragon, which was bodied in like the Japanese manga style, is part of a family of Tamiya RC cars. Basically, they're called like the Hot Shot family. So another car that is in the catalog for Tamiya is called a Tamiya Hot Shot. That was a car I couldn't really attain. It was kind of like, this was the cheaper version of the Hot Shot when I was a kid, and it wasn't really attainable for me. So I ended up with a Tamiya Boomerang, which was like the economy version of the Hot Shot, if you will. But this guy here, I acquired off a marketplace. It was already built, so I'm not taking credit for building this. I rebodied it though. And I bought it and I looked at it, and you know, my 15-year-old self was like, this thing is really just a boomerang, you know, just with a different body. But you know, actually that's not quite true. So all the suspension bits, like these blue bits here, are a little bit different, but the chassis, the differentials front and rear, the overall layout and design of the car is very much in the same esque of the Hot Shot and the Boomerang. So I decided, because I didn't really care for the Fire Dragon body, to be honest, you know, like me being an old school Tamiya guy, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna rebody that. So, you know, the whole idea of not keeping things stock kind of filters into the RC hobby too. So a lot of the stuff we're going to show you today, I've kind of modded at least a little bit to make it more personal for myself. So yeah, this guy, in all honesty, I've never even run this one. This guy is completely pristine. Probably wondering like value, like what are they worth? And I can talk about that. You know, in my opinion, this one here is worth about 200 bucks Canadian. The first one I showed you, they're around the same, 150, you know, depending on who it is. This hobby is huge. There are guys with far bigger collections than what I have. And some guys just buy them and never take them out of the box, like never build them. So these are the kinds of RCs that you build. It's a kit. It's like a model, but you make it work, right? So most of mine are pretty well ready to go. Like I could bind my radio to this and have it running within an hour. Like, I mean, most of my stuff has a motor, right? So here's the Mabuchi 540 in this one. Most of mine have upgrade motors. This one's got a sport tuned Mabuchi 540. So yeah, I mean, this thing, it's got radio gear in it, and you know, if I wanted to take it out on a nice day, I would. Most of them though are like, I mean, in reality, they're going to be run like not hard, right? So they're just run here and there. But I think next what I'll do is I'll just sort of take you over to the hobby room and I'll show you the collection. Let's go. Okay, welcome to a guy's hobby room. This is kind of where all the car related, you know, paraphernalia and whatnots is. And I think if you saw like the first episode that I actually did, you know, I apologize for the quality of that video. It was long before I had this camera. But this guy here is my 991.2, I guess it would be, or 99, what is it, 992 they're on now? The most current generation Porsche GT3. So that's another Tamiya kit, and this one is on a TTO2 Tamiya chassis, which is kind of like the go-to touring car chassis. They put a million different bodies on the Tamiya TTO2. And we'll talk about another one that I had that will probably be of even more interest to you guys. And by the way, if you didn't know, I love orange. So another car that I have is my Tamiya Fox. This is another one from 1985. This is an original car. Now it has got a fresh body on it that sorry, they're a little bit dusty. We just had the windows replaced in the apartment. Anyways, I rebodied this one. This was a complete rebuild. So I pulled it apart, rebuilt it, replaced anything that was broken, and this is literally as good as new. In a couple minutes, we'll have a look at the Fox. It's actually a really cool car. So up there on the shelf, there is my Mark 1 GTI. This is an M05 Tamiya chassis, and believe it or not, it's front-wheel drive. So, yours truly, back in the day, actually had a Mark 1 GTI. So I've actually painted that up and stickered it up with the red pinstripe. Mine didn't have like the bronze wheels. I think it had like the standard GTI Mark 1 silver aluminum wheels. But it's pretty close to the way, like it's a good representation of the way mine was back then. And over here is, like, that's the box, right? So the boxes for these things are also very collectible. As you can see, I've got quite a few boxes here. All right, back to the collection. So, another one we'll have a closer look at in a couple of minutes is my Porsche 959. That there is like the holy grail of Tamiya RCs. It was never re-released. It was only out, I think it was from 1987 to like 1990. And it was super expensive. It was like a $500 RC back then. Mine is completely restored. It is all original. So it's the original body. The incandescent bulbs for the lights still work. And this was like the top of the line 1/12 scale Tamiya rally car. It's 4-wheel drive, independent suspension, and another one that we'll take a closer look at in a couple minutes. Now you'll notice beside it, I have another Porsche. Now this is kind of a mod car. So this car was actually intended to be this, a Volkswagen Beetle Rally. So that's on the Tamiya MF01X chassis. And I stretched the chassis. You can add different bits here. And then I custom mounted this Porsche body, which was supposed to go on another car. And I made my own Rothmans rally car long before I had this guy. So I never in a million years thought I would own a 959. And then one day on Marketplace, the original owner of this guy posted it for sale. And I think he had like 1 million people interested in it, honestly. And I kind of sent him pictures of my collection, like other cars I had at the time. And I think probably the fact that I had already done this kind of sealed the deal. So he's like, oh yeah, it's going to a good home. I said, I'm going to fully restore it. So that thing has been completely pulled apart, every single nut and bolt blown apart and restored. I'll pop up some pictures of some of the restorations I've done, and I promise you the next time I do one, I'll get it on video. We'll just sort of time-lapse it and put it together as an episode or two. They're pretty involved, and sometimes for these old guys, especially if they've never been re-released, it's hard to find parts. Now, the hobby is huge in Europe, especially with Tamiyas, so a lot of the times I've had to go to Europe, like say eBay, UK eBay, or being in Facebook groups, just like the Holdens, like being in Facebook groups for Tamiya RCs. I've had friends in the UK and in the States help me complete some of these cars. So this one here had a bad gear inside the rear differential. And a guy in the UK was kind enough not only to send me the gear I needed, he sent me a spare gearbox. So I have spares now for that car, and it will live on. And if I'm a custodian of these things, right? So something happens to me, or I decide to sell them, I will sell them on with whatever parts I have. So that brings us down to this row. Now these are a hoot. This is a Red Cat Racing Volcano 16. So this is 1/16 scale, like a little mini monster truck. Super quick. These are not the original wheels for this. Believe it or not, these are the wheels that are supposed to be on this little truck. So I kind of went like with a mini monster truck vibe. Quick, fun, cheap. Value, you're looking at about $150. This here is a WL Toys. This was like 2020, even though it says 2016 here. This was 2020's RC Car of the Year. So it's a China brand RC. I think they've gone up a little bit, but you're looking at about 125. Super fun. I think I upgraded the shocks on this. I put a wheelie bar on the back of the Volcano 16. What's this worth? You know, I think it's really worth what someone's willing to pay for it, right? But I think it's 300 bucks. This guy, 700 to 1,000. So let's talk about the Formula One car. So let's talk about my Formula One car. This is my John Player Special Tamiya Road Wizard. Another one, super hard to find, all original except for the spoiler. And it needs, I had to fab my own spoiler stay for it in here. And the driver helmet is different. So this was Ayrton Senna's car when he was with John Player Racing. You know, back in what, 1979, I think it was, around then. So that's a Lotus, right? So it's a Renault powered Lotus. Another like sort of there's a couple here that are super special, and that's another super special car. And I'll pull some of these special ones down and we'll have a closer look at them. This guy here is interesting. This is a repro body by a company called Team Blue Groove, TBG. I actually know them a little bit because they are local to the area, but they ship across the world. And in the RC hobby, if you need a reproduction body, you can't find one, then you can go to those guys, and their quality is amazing. And so I showed you a couple of minutes ago over here, that is a Team Blue Groove reproduction body as well. And there's a company called MCI Racing that does reproduction stickers. So if you need repro stickers, these are repro Rothmans Porsche stickers. I had them rescaled to 1/10 as opposed to the 1/12 you see here. It was just sheer coincidence I ended up with 186 and 187. So that's pretty cool, right? So this is a repro body, repro stickers. The chassis is 1/12. Believe it or not, is 3D printed. So this is a 3D printed RC car. Now, it's pretty crude, like it's not the greatest. I'm not going to tell you it's epic running or whatever, but it was a lot of fun to build. So it's a complete freestyle. Yeah, I went off of plans. I had someone locally print it for me, and then I had to kind of create my own aluminum backbone for it to make it more rigid and get it all to work with a powered motor. Now, I've since gutted that one for parts, like the radio gear and whatnot, so it's not currently running. That one runs, that one runs, that one runs, that one runs, that one runs. This guy runs. So this is my Mercedes, like Le Mans type car, prototype car. So it's a C11 Mercedes. I have the box up on the shelf there somewhere. Brand new car, never been run. I built it 100%. We talked about the wild one. This is my Mark II Tamiya Hotshot. This is another original from around 1987. Original body, original wheels. I'm trying to think. It's got they're not really reproduction because they're from Tamiya and they're from the same molds. So it has a new bumper on it, if you will, and a newer shock absorber on the front. A couple of these control arms are fresh as well. These get really brittle over time and they start to crack, right? So they need to be replaced. But the car is 100% Tamiya. And I actually have two of these. I have another project car that is a re-release. This is an original, so from 1987. The Mark I was out for a very, very brief amount of time, and you can tell a Mark I because it has 3 holes in the bumper here. So this is a Mark II. The body, this was a project, so I had to pull, like, this is a partial restoration, I would say. The diffs have been rebuilt. A lot of it's been rebuilt, but as you can see, it's a little bit dirty. I have run this car. It's having radio issues right now, and I'm not quite sure why. So it's another one I probably need to dig into over the winter. Then we're on to my team associated RC10. If you know anything about RC cars, you probably know about the RC10. This is the World Championship Edition. These used to race in the 80s and 90s. This is a gold pan car, and it's an A stamp car. The really cool thing about these, and maybe I'll just dig it out and show it to you on the table out in the living room, is it's got an aluminum chassis. It's got a stealth transmission. I can't take responsibility for building this, so I bought this one off of Marketplace and I stole it. Got a really good deal on it. What's it worth? About 400, I would say. That one's probably worth 250, 200. 200. Really special car. So, long before I was into Holdens, I was into Trans Ams. In fact, I've owned a couple of GTA Trans Ams. One, if you watched the episode where I talked about it, I actually made it into high performance Pontiac magazine, which was pretty dope. In fact, if you go online and look up the July 2003 issue, here it is there, you'll find yours truly in the magazine, which is pretty cool. So I am a Pontiac guy, and I am a Trans Am guy. And of course, if you're a Trans Am guy, how could you not have a Bandit Trans Am? So this is a Tamiya TT02 chassis with HPI, Hobby Products International, new old stock body. I think they don't make these anymore. I got lucky at the hobby shop next city over in Hamilton to acquire it, and yeah, it's dusty, but it's the full deal, right? So it's got the bird, it's got band 1 license plate on the back, it's got the Dixie one on the front. I really wanted to find a little Burt Reynolds figure to put in there. You know, maybe one day that'll happen. Pretty cool car. Another one, I've never run it. Actually, that's not true. I've run it up and down the hallway here in the apartment building. Okay, now we're on to my Tamiya Bigwig. This is another one of the era of the Hotshot. Another car that, you know, I couldn't afford back then. This, again, is an original. So they did re-release these in like 2010 or so. But this is an original. In fact, this one is made up of 2 cars. So I acquired one out of the UK and another one locally. And when I bought the one locally, I quickly realized I didn't have enough parts to rebuild it. And then I found another one in England and had it shipped over. And out of the 2, save for the roll bars, which are next to impossible to find with this integrated scoop, I had to, in my one of my Tamiya groups, a guy, I think from the States, had the roll bars. So I was able to rebuild it. Now these are Tamiya new old stock wheels. And I'm trying to think. Oh, and then this is another Team Blue Groove body. So this is not an original Tamiya body, but as you can see, it works with all the components. And then these are MCI decals. The Bigwig box art is a little bit different blue, and I just opted for this one. And then I painted my shocks this gold. So yeah, and then the driver isn't quite the right driver for it. And I have run that car, so it does run. It runs actually really good. Okay, let's talk about my Hornet Evo. So this is a new one. The Tamiya Hornet has been around forever. And it goes right back to like 1985. But then a couple of years ago now, they released the Evolution. So the original Hornet didn't have independent rear suspension. So what they did was basically, I think they went to CAD and then figured out a way to use the original chassis, but then come up with a whole new rear end suspension for it. So this is called the Hornet Evolution. So it's fairly new release, and as you can see, it's like a bathtub chassis, right? And then what they did was they reworked the suspension to make it like trailing arm. Actually, no, they're double wishbone, I think. And then you can see the shock absorbers here. So the original suspension came from something called the Grasshopper, which was one of Tamiya's original off-road RC buggies, and it was fairly basic. Okay, and then we're on to, we're going to skip the Holden. We'll come back to it though. So these are little stunt vans. I forget what they're actually called. So these are lunchbox minis. So this is actually Amanda's. Amanda built this. In fact, we built the two of them together. And then this is my homage to the A-Team. So this is my A-Team van. And then Amanda built hers the way it would be. Guys, these are a total hoot. Like, they're so much fun. And they pop wheelies and they do all kinds of crazy stuff. In fact, if you look, there's a little wheelie bar here, right? So that is my little A-Team van. As you can see, I put Hoonigan stickers on it. Those are a lot of fun. These guys, I think the yellow one runs. Mine, I've kind of gutted radio parts. The Bigwig runs, Trans Am runs, the Hornet runs. The Hornet I've actually used a fair amount. Okay, the Audi. The Audi is a non-runner. In fact, that's a fresh body on a very, very old chassis. And I've never ran that one. That's on an ORV chassis. So if you've ever heard of the Tamiya Frog, Subaru Brat, Tamiya Blackfoot, it's all the same chassis, just different versions. I think this one was a Frog or a Brat. And I'm trying to make, there was a very old Audi Quattro rally car that Tamiya made on a different chassis. That's now very difficult to find and very expensive if you want one. I was trying to make my own kind of like rally car homage to that. That's another one that probably needs to be rebuilt. So it looks pretty cool, but it's a non-runner and it needs to be rebuilt. This is my Arma Gorgon. So this is the biggest one in my collection. I think it's still 1/10 scale, but it's huge. And they're a lot of fun. They're around 200 bucks. And I actually have some ideas that I may share at a later date on doing a rebody on this guy. That there is a China truck. You know, it's probably worth about 100 bucks. These are the kinds of things you get on Amazon. I think I bought it off a marketplace early on when I restarted my collection for like 50 bucks. Today's Halloween, by the way. Happy Halloween. But we're getting there. So I do have plans this weekend to do some more stuff at the unit. But, you know, the reality is we're running out of time for this year. Anyways, let's go look at some of these RCs. Let's go. Okay, this is probably the crown jewel in my collection. This is the Tamiya 959. Tamiya quite often will, you know, periodically, say every decade or so, re-release RC cars. So what happens with Tamiya is they just do limited production runs. They're still, I think, even to this day, a fairly small Japanese company. And, you know, they'll produce, say, 10,000 of something, and then they move on to something else. So that's where the collectability comes in. It's not like your average toy where they just keep producing them forever. They don't do that. They don't flood the market. And in this case, they've never, ever re-released this car. This car, officially from Tamiya, has never lived on. So you either have one or you don't. So this is mine. And as I said, I acquired this from the original owner. And this is probably a lot older than some of you watching, believe it or not. Like, it's hard to wrap your brain around it, but this car came out in 1987, and I think it was done by 1990. So I was literally 16 years old when this car came out, and I remember freaking out over this, right? So the actual light bulbs still work. You can see the driver's cockpit, very realistic. I really didn't have to do anything to it other than clean it. I think I gave it a gentle bath, and then I did some restriping to it. I had to glue and reinforce some of the front of the body because it had taken some hits over the years. What I kind of love about this car is it's not perfect and pristine. You could tell the original owner used it. Oh, and I think I resprayed some of the interior where the paint had degraded. I don't know if you know, but RC cars, you paint from the inside. So I actually did some respraying on this. But trust me, I was very delicate with it. So this is the original body. This is not a reproduction. You can get them, but I elected to keep this car as original as humanly possible. And that's the car. So I completely dismantled this, rebuilt it. I put everything, you know, those ultrasonic jewelry cleaners. So all the nuts and bolts on this were completely cleaned. The whole thing was disassembled and reassembled. So really, kind of like your bragging rights when you build RCs is how smooth are your diffs, right? Like my diffs usually turn out pretty amazing. So I don't know if you noticed, but it's actually shaft driven. So the drive shaft is right here. So when I move the two wheels in the same direction in the back, the front wheels will begin to turn. This is an old blade style speed controller. So this is the way they were in the 80s and maybe early 90s, right before they went to electronic speed controllers. So I've retained, like this is running two servos. There's a servo here and a servo here. So I've retained as much of the technology as I can from them. The only thing that I've done is I've added a more modern radio receiver to keep it more reliable. Now this guy comes with something called a Technigold motor, and the motor is right in the center of this guy. This chassis, the way they designed this, other than one other car called the Toyota Celica, they never use this chassis for anything else. So this is a very special car. Double wishbone independent suspension. The shock absorbers are a little bit fragile, as are the control, like the suspension arms. But it all works as it should. I have driven it. I think I've driven it once outside and then just up and down the hallway a couple of times. This is kind of my pinnacle of my collection. You'll notice it's got double bumpers too, which is really interesting. I don't think I'll ever be lucky enough to score another deal. But you know, you're talking about an RC car now that's, what, over 40 years old? Almost 40 years old. So it's, you know, you just take your time with it, and treat it with some respect, and it all goes together nice. Some guys in the hobby are you know, far more advanced with the modding of them than I am, and it, you know, it's like cars, it's like real cars, you know, it just comes down to money. You know, how much money do you want to put into it, right? I am more on the economy end of things, and I like originality as well. Not a car you would want to modify. This is a collector grade car that really needs to be, you know, you could make it so that it's running like I have with this, but it's really, you know, something to stay on a shelf. Right, let's go see what else I got. Okay, so this is my 1992 World Championship Edition RC10. So this is not a Tamiya, it's actually made by Team Associated, which is an American company, and to this day they're still in business. When the RC10 came out, really honestly, it was like a game changer in the RC world, and it left everyone kind of scratching their heads. So this is what they call a gold pan car. So this is actually an aluminum chassis. You know, by today's standards, it's probably quite heavy, but the layout of this car, it has a slipper differential. And it has, of course, the double, like the independent suspension, right? So it's all four-wheel independent suspension. And this car, I bought it as a non-runner. I went with a 90s electronic speed controller. So this was like voodoo technology back in the 90s. Like, I mean, if you had this, you were at the forefront of the RC hobby. And I remember even after I got my license, going to the one RC track that we had at the time, and you know, guys were running these, and I was like in awe of these cars. So this guy does run. I haven't run it extensively. The only thing really that's fresh is the speed controller, the servo, the radio, and the back tires. So I went with a slightly different style back tire. The back tires, I still have all the original stuff. I never throw anything away. It probably drives a man crazy. But you can see how the suspension is like, kind of like next level on this. This is a special car. Worth, you know, it depends on who it is. I don't have the original box for it. You can sometimes find original empty boxes, and even then they want 50 to 100 for a period correct box. What do I think it's worth? Well, probably, you know, in the current market, about 300 maybe. Something like that. I mean, they made plenty of these, and they do make re-releases now, but this is an original. So that's my A stamp. Oh, why do they call it A stamp? Well, underneath here somewhere. I think it's actually where the motor sits. Underneath. So I can't show it to you. There's a stamp, and it's basically like when in the era of RC10s was your car made. And this is at the beginning. So this is further along. It's not right at the beginning, but it's still, you know, like first generation RC10 would be probably an accurate way of putting it. If you're an 80s kid like me, you probably, or you may at least know the Tamiya Hotshot. This was probably the pinnacle four-wheel drive RC car of the era. You know, there was the Avanti, which came a little bit later. This was released in 1985. This one here is probably in 1986, maybe in 1987. It's a Mark II. You can tell though, really, even like here, the chassis is not really that scratched up. But this guy is not a re-release, it's an original. Even the body is original. I didn't paint it. I actually got the body out of Texas. I bought this as a project car. The suspension was all messed up. The differentials were all messed up. So some of these arms back here had to be replaced, and I had to go through the full car. So this one is four-wheel drive as well. So if you move the two together, then the front ones go too. So that's my Tamiya Hotshot. And when this is not the original motor, so this is a sport tuned, but it's still a proper era correct kind, if you will, Tamiya engine in the. So that brings me to my Fox. So this is my Tamiya Fox, and I think maybe I did this one at the sort of the end of winter this year, but still the last one that I restored. This is another one from the era, and like sometimes you get lucky. Like I can see scratches, maybe the camera won't pick it up, on the arms, like the suspension arms and up here on the chassis. But this car is an all original as well. I don't know if, I think they did a re-release on these at one point, but they're actually called the Nova Fox. I think there are differences between the Nova. So the way the suspension is on mine, being an original, is a little bit different than on a Nova Fox. Love this car. It is a runner. It's not super fast, but it's super cool to see running. The black wheels are actually off of my Wild one, the first car I showed you today. I painted them black. They weren't original to the car anyway, so don't freak out or anything. The gold wheels that came with this Fox ended up on my Wild one. So really the major mod was I didn't like where the spoiler was sitting. The spoiler is supposed to sit about here. So I'll let you on a little secret. Dollar store Meccano. So these little bits here are dollar store Meccano. So I just painted them black, and then I extended the wing out a little bit. So to me it just has a better profile. And then I added the double antennas, and then Amanda actually picked this color. So, the body. I think I can take this one off pretty quick to show you. And I painted the driver. The guy I bought this from never painted the driver. So he's an original 1985 driver, painted in year 2025. Can you see it? So I'm pretty good with drivers. I'm not the best. I'm not the worst. I'm kind of mid-level. Some guys are insanely talented with drivers. But what I wanted to show you was, okay, so RC car bodies are painted from the outside, or sorry, painted from the inside. So the color that shows through is the first color you put down, right? So this is like a metallic red, and then it's backed with gold. So in the sunlight, this is kind of like a candy apple red. It's kind of dim in here, and I apologize. It's probably not the best light to show this car in, but in the sunlight with the kind of chrome and blue accents, it actually looks really epic. This is probably one of my better looking RCs. Now you can't really see much inside the chassis because on this one it's all covered. But underneath here would be all your radio and running gear. And this is a runner. I can stick a battery in this, bind it to my one radio I have, which I'll show you towards the end of the video. And I can make this run like in a couple minutes. That's my 1985 Tamiya Fox. Okay, at first appearances, it looks like I have here a Tamiya lunchbox RC, but actually that's not what it is. So this is the full size kind of 10 scale version of those little mini wheelie ones that I showed you, called the lunchbox van. 112 scale. But what's in here isn't a lunchbox, it's something else. So when I went to acquire my first Tamiya bigwig, the car I showed you earlier, the guy also had this Tamiya Avanti. This car was another one in the early 90s, so a little bit later, so kind of like after I was out of the hobby at that point, because I had moved on to, you know, my first car when I was 16. But this thing is kind of like another one that guys go nuts over for. So generally when I get one for restoration, it kind of looks like this, right? Like it's not all there. So this is kind of the way I got it, and then I started to inventory the parts. So you can see I've got, you know, like this Tupperware container. This is the spoiler, so it would go back here somewhere, right? See that? I got some extra tires, original from the early 90s, and like this thing was run, guys. So the knobbies are worn right down. So these would be the original wheels from the 90s. Right. Oh, and I got a couple of spoilers, so for whatever reason, they decided to do this one pink. I don't know if it was a girl racing it or what. So then I got my more parts, right? So generally what I do is I'll start to disassemble them, and then I'll sort of catalog or bag up the parts so I can find stuff when I go to reassemble. And then there's, so this is another motor. So this is a technical motor. Now this one needs to be gone through and rebuilt. So that Porsche 959 and this Avanti were the only two cars, to my knowledge, that had the technical. Oh no, and the Tamiya bigwig did too. My bigwig doesn't have a technical in it, so I really need a third one. Or I could throw that in my bigwig, but it needs to be rebuilt. So these are kind of like the projects that I have, right? And you know, like this is how people deal with their drivers. It's not something I would do. And this guy's savable. I could paint all over that and make it look a lot more realistic, right? So the thing is, though, the parts are pretty hard to come by for this. And it's a little bit intimidating, I'm not going to lie. So I kind of put this one on the back burner. I'm not really emotionally attached to this guy. You know, if you're out there and you're interested in this, throw me a number. I know these are like $800, you know, $500 to $800 when they're complete. And again, this isn't a re-release, this is an original. Okay, so here's the last project I'm going to show you today before we look at the Holden. So this is a re-release Tamiya Hotshot. So another one I found on Marketplace. Basically, it was a re-release. Guy built it for his kids. The kids took it to the park. And I don't know if it was the kids or if it was him, but something happened with the diff. So, like he was crunching gears. So usually that means it either hasn't been treated very well or, you know, it wasn't built properly to begin with. So I bought it as a project, and because I needed this front shock absorber and a few other bits and pieces for my original, you know, it's okay in our RC community you know, to use Tamiya bits from re-releases to keep the originals alive. So I kind of sacrificed this car to some degree to make it so that my original lives on, kind of deal. But I have plans for this car. There are plenty of because this isn't an original, it's kind of like if you had a really rare like HSV or Pontiac GXP or something like that, you wouldn't necessarily want to modify it, right? It's like buying a GA GT, like my car. So this deal here, you know, because it's a re-release, it's not an original, I can modify it. So there are ways to go from this single shock to double shocks and do some other things like the wheels and other things that I could do to this car to make this my modded version of a hotshot. So that's the plan. So in here I got more parts, lots of spare parts in here. So there's the car, right? And again, this is kind of how I get them. Quite often they come to me like this. I'll completely disassemble this thing and rebuild it. So I can't remember if it was the front diff or the rear one. That one seems to spin okay. And again, I've used a lot of parts, some of the parts at least, for my original. You know, there's the bumper. And here's the suspension bits, right? And interestingly, they never took the body and painted it. So I'll probably paint this one red to make it more box art. It's got the original manual, it's got the original stickers. Like, this is all worth. That's what the stickers look like. This is all worth some bucks. So what's it worth as it sits with all the bits and pieces that are in here? Body set, no, probably 100. On a good day, maybe 150. I think I paid 100 for it. So, you know, I got lots of projects to keep me going over the winter. So there's the hotshot project. So this is a re-release. It's not from 1985. It just looks like it could be. It's actually from 2010. All right, let's go find the Holden Commodore. Okay, last but not least, this is my VE Commodore replica of my own car. So I painted it black, obviously, and you'll notice. So there's a company, I think it's called rcplates.com. They also have like a Facebook page. So I ordered those. They're out of the States. So this isn't an actual kit. This is a custom, which is a touring car chassis that I combined. And when I say modified, really it's just been rebodied, right? So this car, really the only mod that it has is, you know, it has different wheels. So those are by a company called Max Speed Technology, MST. And then it has like its own LED kind of underglow kit. So I run a 3-channel radio, so I can run a 3rd channel, steering, throttle, and reverse. And then the 3rd channel is the lights. So this guy, I can turn the lights on and off. And then the other mod I have is these brackets here with magnets on the actual body, which I'll show you in a second. And then I've adapted or adjusted these body mounts on the chassis to work with the Holden body. So I tried to make it look as close to my own car as possible. Again, I'm not a racer, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm a guy who just bounces around parking lots. I don't do anything competitive. This is actually not a TTO2 chassis, this is a TTO1, so TTO01. So I would recommend the TTO2. They're you know, physically the same dimensions, so the wheelbase and the track is all the same. It's just that the diffs are easier to build, the front and rear diffs, especially the rear one in this car, are a lot easier to build. So if you've never built one before and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go and build one, get yourself a TTO2. if you're going to build a Tamiya. Now, Kyosho makes a really good kit too. I don't know a lot about building those. I built several TTO2s. I built one for Kelly. So that Holden Ute that he has, the blue and silver one, I built a replica Holden Ute RC car for him. And if you go to the episode that we did in September at the the headquarters for the other guys, you'll briefly see that car there. And I'll throw up some pictures now anyway. All right, so the body. How do you get the body? Where do you get it? So I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Go to eBay Australia, ebay.com.au. And I think it's 2 keys. If you look up the eBay vendor, 2 keys. Or if you just go to the search and put in, Holden Commodore VE body shell RC, it'll probably come up. So that particular vendor sells this body set in different ways. You can buy it as a 888 Racing Red Bull livery car, like already pre-painted, pre-stickered. You can buy it as the Vodafone car that they had, back in 2012-ish era. Or you can buy it clear, and there may be a couple of other iterations that I can't think of. I opted to buy it clear this time, so I have the Vodafone body as well. And if I can dig it out in a second, I'll show it to you towards the end of the video. But I bought it clear, just like that hotshot body I showed you just a minute ago. So I painted it myself, I masked off the windows myself, and I painted it black, and then backed it with silver. And then of course, GW Designs, August 2024. So I built this summer last year. So in order to make this more like an HSV looking car and not like a standard VE SS, I actually modded the stickers a little bit. The guy was kind enough, because I ordered several body sets all at once, he included a second sticker set. So I was able to kind of emulate the HSV fascia a little bit. So he sent me an extra set of VF Maloo stickers, and I made that work with this car. But if you go to 2 keys, or you do the search like I said, you'll be able to come up with your own body, right? And then of course I did like the G8 style rear end for now, because that's what I have. But I thought it turned out pretty cool, right? Okay, I don't really know what happened to my Team Vodafone VE Commodore V8 supercar body, but it's probably around here somewhere. I just gotta dig it out. So I will show you that another time, but I have more things to show you. So, when I did Kelly's RC HSV Maloo replica of his actual car, the blue one, I acquired 2 more Maloo bodies. And one isn't actually even mine, it's Amanda's. So we actually painted Amanda's car body in and around the same time we did Kelly's. Mine is still clear. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like in a second. But we have a couple of Maloos, yeah. So that is Amanda's body. As you can see, it has no stickers. It's got slightly tinted windows, and it is pink. Now the camera will pick it up, but it's pink back with gold. So this is another one in the sunlight. Like, it looks pretty epic. And same vendor does Maloo bodies, by the way, guys. You too could have your own HSV Maloo. So just to give you an idea, I don't know. I put holes in this, so I don't know if it's for this chassis or not. The body posts may have to be adjusted. Might have been for the TTO. This is a TTO1, so it might have had to be for the TTO2. But there you go. It kind of gives you the idea of what that would look like, right? Pretty cool. Maybe there's something else we'll get finished this winter. All right. Let me just show you the clear version. Here's the sticker set, right? So this is the sticker set that the vendor in Australia sends with the car. So it says LSA, GTS, Maloo. It's even got the little HSV badges. It's got all the window trims, the tail lights, the headlights, the whole 9 yards. No instructions, you got to figure it out. So you got to actually individually cut and peel. So you have to be really good, use fine scissors and all that good stuff. And you want curved scissors for cutting out the body, so the bodies don't come cut, right? Unless you order like that. I think, pretty sure the race car livery ones, they did actually come cut. What do I mean by that? Well, let me show you. This is how they come. See what I mean? You've got to cut out the shape of the car out of the body shell. Okay, just want to talk about cost. So here's my radio, by the way. So this is a FlySky GT3B, I think it's called. So this radio comes with one little receiver box that goes in your RC, but you can program it to control up to 10 RCs. Obviously not all at once, but what I do is I use the one radio, and then if I take a couple of them to the parking lot or whatever, I'll run one at a time and I just toggle through, right? So you can see it's on HSV, so that is this car. Always put your radio on first if you don't know, and then turn your car on second. So my car is powered up. Yeah, I'll show you real quick. Probably go out in the hallway and let her rip a little bit, but there's the steering, right? This is cool. So there's my underglow, right? It's pretty cool. Cost you're looking at, for the Tamiya kit, you're looking at, turn it off. About $200 for your standard TT02 touring car chassis kit. You're looking at, I'm trying to think, about $100 for the body. So it was cheaper than that, but then by the time you ship it, and then, duties and tariffs and all that, maybe more expensive now, guys. I'm just kind of giving you an idea, right? Wheels and tires, you're looking at, $30, $40, depending on what you go with. I tried to emulate the style of the wheels that are currently on my car, my real car. The plates, I want to say, depending on what you do, you can do different states and provinces. $30, something like that. So they weren't cheap by any stretch. And then the radio, paints, $20, $30 for your paint supplies, different hobby supplies. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. I've done quite a few of these body sets over the years now. And then the radio, these are fairly cheap, like $60. If you want spare receivers to set up separate models, they're about $20 each, so they're pretty reasonable. So, all in, you're probably realistically with a charger in the $450 range, I think, is probably realistic. If you wanted to do your own RC Holden, of course, paint it to suit your own car, right? So if you go to Tamiya, if you go on Google, Tamiya polycarbonate paint, it's a special paint, right? It's not your standard spray paint. Don't spray paint it with normal spray paint, and don't spray paint it on the outside because it won't work, I promise you. It may look cool. If you're going to do a shelf queen, maybe, but that's not the intent. If you want this gloss shine, then you'd paint it on the inside to give it the gloss effect. There's really only one thing left to do. Let's go. There's really only one thing left to do. Let's go. There's really only one thing left to do. Let's go. Don't forget, live life to the max.